to the Acoustics Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Mitchell. Our topic today is about the future of wireless home audio, more specifically, WiSA technology, which makes it possible to connect up to 8 speakers wirelessly for an immersive Dolby Atmos home theater experience. Our guest today is Tony Ostrom, president of the Wireless Audio and Speaker Association, known as WiSA. Tony has a 25-year career in the consumer electronics industry and has previously worked in product development and marketing roles for Klipsch, House of Marley, Powermat, and JL Audio. Tony has a BA in music engineering and a minor in physics from Ball State University. Welcome to the podcast, Tony. Quite a resume you got there.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that.
So take me a little bit through your journey of getting to WiSA. You've had a long career in the electronics industry. What led you there, and what made you jump over to WiSA?
That's going to take the entire 20 minutes.
Okay.
Love of all things audio and sound is the quick answer. I've been a musician for many, many years, played a few different instruments along the way. I'm a pretty avid drummer at this point. But just anything that reproduced great sound, be it, music or movies or anything of the like. That's what drove me to, the music engineering degree at Ball State. Did some time in retail and helping people build systems. Did the car audio competition circuit for a few years. Ended up at JL Audio, and that's when I really started to see how everything works. And my degree had and my music experience had taught me kind of how to create sound and capture it either by writing it down or reproducing it or recording it in a studio. And then, the last part was, okay, how do we bring that to people? And so I did a lot of that with car audio. And then JL started to get into home audio. I transitioned to Klipsch and did a lot of home audio and personal audio. Again, staying with kind of the technology trend at Powermat, and then personal audio at Marley, and back to Klipsch, where I was first exposed to WiSA. Okay. And we brought one of the first, immersive wireless audio systems to market in the reference Premier line. And we used the WiSA technology, which was, it became known as WiSA. It was technology from Summit Semiconductor. And the WiSA part was the certification, which we did. And then just realized how powerful that was, how much simplicity it brought to people's, right, ability to set up those systems, and migrated to WiSA. And now I'm, helping build that category.
Okay. So I think WiSA started in 2011. You joined in 2016. Correct. So, and I think you were working with WiSA while you were at Klipsch. So you were part of the early development phase, but do you have any recollection of when WiSA started? A little bit about that history and kind of how that came together?
Yeah, it started, that 2010 was kind of when the association started, and it was based on the technology, because they needed to formalize a way to ensure interoperability. It was never really meant to be just a closed technology that brand A would use for their products and brand B would use for their products, and never the two shall meet. It was really a wire replacement, which sounds very simple, but to make it a true wire replacement is incredibly difficult. But the association, a few years before that, the technology a few years before that 2010 timeframe, it started rolling and being integrated in some products. The association followed quickly because, to the previous point, they needed to be sure that things were going to work together if they wanted to work together. And so that's really the core purpose of the association at that time. We do a lot more now.
Okay. So what about the technology itself? We have Bluetooth, we have Wi-Fi, there's Sonos, there's DTS Play-Fi. These are some of the other options out there. How does WiSA fit into this category?
That's a great question. So WiSA was really from the beginning designed for true high definition, multi-channel home theater, home entertainment audio. And, some of the other technologies that you're mentioning, they may have been, more of a whole house solution, or they may have been more of a kind of a near field audio only solution. I mean, I'm using Bluetooth right now to communicate with you. But when you talk about, wrapping, in some cases, very high-end speakers around a big, beautiful screen and creating an immersive experience in a home, that has to be high definition. That has to be multi-channel. And we're talking, 6, 8, even being requested now more than that channels, which we will have a solution for. And that has to be very tightly synchronized and extremely low latency. And those are the things, kind of the stalwarts of our technology, and why, we're really designed for that immersive home theater application.
Okay, so purposely built for home theater or home audio.
Yes.
Would that be accurate?
Yes, multi-channel. Really focusing on a lot of channels and not losing any fidelity, not losing any latency, not sacrificing synchronization when you go from 2 channels to 8 channels. It's the exact same specifications.
All right. And one of the topics that comes up a lot in the audiophile community is it lossless? Is it uncompressed or lossless transmission? Does all the information get from A to B?
It is both of those things. And they are slightly different, obviously, but it is uncompressed and it is lossless. We support up to 2496 in our current WiSA HT technology. And we have a lot of IP wrapped around the part of the technology that gets us to the low latency. There's we're not buffering the signal. We're not having to send a lot of repeat packets. We can get a couple of the PhDs in here to really, bend the minds of the nerd contingent of your community, which we'd love to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're really proud of the fact that we're lossless, we're uncompressed, and what you put in is what you get out.
Right. So it's really a true wire replacement. So the wire would send the signal from A to B, and you found a way to sender, transmitter, receiver to accomplish the same goal. It's doing it digitally though, not analog, or is it a combination of?
No, that's correct. That's correct. It's in the digital domain.
Okay.
Yeah, and honestly, we're probably we're losing less signal than you would with 40 feet of copper wire. So the other benefit is, when you talk about a single point source up front, with a single power supply that's supplying power to however many speakers around the room. Obviously, the subwoofer's not probably included, but you're talking 5 or more speakers from one centralized unit, rather than powered speakers where each one of them has their own power supply, each one of them has their own electronics. Dynamic range is improved, the integration of the electronics and the acoustic package is improved. So there are a lot of non-wireless benefits to that type of system that are made possible by the audio transmission being wireless.
Okay. And so you joined in 2016. Now we're almost 7 years since then. How has what WiSA has been doing improved over that time?
Well, that's another really good question. So our membership has grown quite a bit. There are a lot more products in the field. We have a couple of new technologies that are in process of being released. They've been announced. WiSA DS for predominantly aimed at the soundbar market. We saw some opportunities to improve what was currently available wirelessly. And then WiSA E, which is a new technology that's being evaluated and potentially integrated by some beta customers right now, that is really designed to be more easily embedded in sources. The holy grail is obviously getting something inside of TVs and set-top boxes and those types of things. And that's really the goal for WiSA E. And then one of the big things is we have now our first branded product, which you mentioned earlier, the SoundSend, when we were talking. So the SoundSend is really kind of the universal transmitter that works with all modern TVs to let all these now WiSA certified interoperable speakers easily connect without any of these brands having to build their own transmitter. Having been through that at Klipsch, when you're a speaker brand, you'd rather just make speakers. So we facilitated that by bringing that universal transmitter to market. So we're doing a lot of things now, that, at the beginning, we were basically creating a great technology and making sure it was interoperable. And now we're helping brands market those products. We're helping with our WiSA certified retailer program. We're just doing a lot of things to build the category.
Okay, so you brought up a few things there that I kind of want to dissect there. So WiSA E, WiSA DS. Now you're talking about different versions of WiSA. Are they interoperable? How does that play out for the customer?
Yeah, so DS and E will be. Our current technology is kind of its own thing. It's a module-based technology. We have WiSA SoundSend to work with it and work with all TVs. So its ecosystem is vast, and it can continue to grow. WiSA DS really being a platform for soundbars doesn't need to be interoperable, because usually that's a kind of a closed system. But we do see the opportunity for some brands to maybe want to use products in a couple of different ways. Maybe that subwoofer that goes with that soundbar, they want to use it with a different system, or the surrounds, or whatever. And then WiSA E being a more embeddable solution, it'll have the same kind of growth opportunity that our current technology has. But obviously, with it being embedded in TVs, that could be a pretty explosive market. And so DS and E working together makes a lot of sense. And then the cross component is we have a certification for TVs called SoundSend certification, to make sure that, even though HDMI and CEC and everything are supposed to work perfectly in every situation, there are some variances we found. So we just go ahead and kind of triple check and make sure everything works perfectly with SoundSend. The good thing there is we will have a SoundSend E as well. So a TV that has a SoundSend E, but you want to put an HT system around it, there's a SoundSend that works with that. So there'll be a lot of cross compatibility just by changing out your SoundSend if you wanted to.
Okay, so for people that don't know what SoundSend is, it's this little circular box that connects to your TV via HDMI. So there is a wired connection from your TV to this box, and then that box sends everything else out wirelessly. And I think what you're saying is the goal is to get rid of that box and have the technology just built into the TV, so it's broadcasting wireless, or it's sending the signal without having to set up another adapter box.
That's exactly right. And so SoundSend right now allows any WiSA certified WiSA HT, our current technology speaker, to be easily connected to any TV. As a new technology would come out, WiSA E, that would have the same exact scenario. So depending on which speakers you have, you get the proper SoundSend. Eventually, we see WiSA E being embedded into sources and removing that need for an external box. And SoundSend right now, you kind of look at it as, the modern day AVR, because you now no longer need a bunch of power up front and a bunch of copper wire. You have that at every location around you, the speaker and the power. And then SoundSend allows you to room correct. It allows you to change speaker levels. It allows you to have different modes or modes. They affect your mood, I guess, and customize those things to your preferences. So we've done a lot. There's a new SoundSend app right now that's just called the WiSA app, that's available for iOS and Android. Works with SoundSend, and I would encourage people to check it out, because it really does a lot of the classic AVR feature set with tuning and room correction, things like that, but in a much simpler way for the end user to incorporate into their system.
Okay, so why the different namings? I know internally you probably need these namings, but does the customer need to know about E and DS and old version, new version, all that?
The only reason well, first of all, because DS is more soundbar centered, there's really no need for a customer to know about WiSA DS. Now, they may at some point, understand that WiSA stands for a certain level of audio quality, and it's nice to know that there is a WiSA tech in there. But there's really no need for them to understand that it's a WiSA DS product. And the only real difference between them a consumer needing to know if it's an HT product or an E product would be in the case that they need to know which sound send to buy. And eventually when it's embedded, that we believe that it would predominantly be WiSA E speakers available and everything would just work.
Okay. How far away are we from having this option embedded in the TV? And are there any current TVs on the market that have it embedded?
It's brand new. So Brian, you're on the cutting edge of knowing what's going on here.
Right.
Unless you diligently read all of our press releases. So right now, WiSA E is being tested by some beta customers. And so, we hope to have some, more news as we go through kind of the backside of 23 and early 24 with respect to that technology.
Okay. So I'm trying to paint a picture for the future. Tell me if this is accurate. I buy a new TV that has some WiSA certified logo on it.
Correct.
I buy some wireless speakers that say WiSA certified on them. And I can buy any speaker from any brand and I can just plug them in and I can have 2 speakers, 1 speaker, 8 speakers, and they're all going to figure out where they are and make my room sound amazing. Is that the promise?
You nailed it.
Okay.
Because that's what should happen, right? That's the simplified yet amazingly high performance solution that consumers deserve right now, especially when the content they're already enjoying at home has that capability to deliver that experience. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whether you're watching Stranger Things or The Last of Us or the Super Bowl or whatever, that sound is already capable of an immersive experience. We just want to knock down all the barriers of entry to people actually enjoying it. And that's what this does. Your TV is already the center of the universe when it comes to home entertainment.
Right.
And so let's just have all that content that's already aggregated there, and that user interface, it's already your one-stop shop for everything. The biggest, it's the two most difficult questions you ever ask anybody are, where do you want to go to lunch and what do you want to watch tonight? Right.
Right.
Because here's the strip of everything we could watch. And oh my gosh, here's this app and this app and this app. Then you shouldn't have to worry about how it's, how you're going to perceive it from an audio perspective. It should just be amazing.
Right. Right. So let's go through some of the options people can buy right now. What are the brands? I think we were speaking offline earlier. The brands have to come to the WiSA Association to essentially get a chip that goes in their products that makes it work. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, right now, we have a lot of brands. We have, gosh, it's somewhere in the, I think 70 to it's a lot of brands that are members. And probably maybe almost half of them have products in the field. And this is on a global basis. And what happens with that is, a brand wants to incorporate wireless audio into a product. They come to us, they join the WiSA Association, and we provide all of the necessary documentation for, as you put this in your product, make sure you're doing these things to make sure it's interoperable. And then that interoperability makes sure that transmitters, right now, things like SoundSend, eventually things like TVs will be able to, and there are TVs actually right now that have our technology embedded in them. But eventually we want it to be more ubiquitous, so that transmitter and that receiver are speaking the same language. And so the transmitter knows, okay, I see 6 speakers, I know I have a sub, 2 fronts, 2 rears, blah, 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 and all these things, and they can communicate certain data back and forth. That's part of the certification process. And then we also make sure that there's a certain level of performance, wireless performance, that's being achieved. You may have done all those things correctly, but you put it inside of 4 consecutive metal boxes and it's never going to get any wireless. So that's bad. So we make sure that all those things are in working order, and then they get WiSA certified. And this is brands, Klipsch, Harman Kardon, Bang Olufsen. We recently had some product from Pylon Audio, from Mesonomic microphones. Some brands that have been doing wireless for a long time, some that are just getting into it. Our SoundSend certification, we've had TVs from Hisense, TVs from LG, and we're in constant communication with a lot of brands, to go through the process. Yeah, our WiSATechnologies.com has a full list of everything.
Okay, but I wasn't clear earlier, or maybe I misheard you. The Hisense and LG TVs already have it built in, or some models?
They have, well, actually, there might be some news on some of that coming forth that I'm not willing to share. I can't really share right
Okay.
now, but both of those brands have been SoundSense certified.
Okay.
Now other TV brand like Bang & Olufsen, as an example, has WiSA HT technology in their TVs that broadcast to their WiSA certified speakers, and everything up to the $120,000 a pair Biolab 90s are WiSA HT certified. And that same exact module, just kind of anecdotally, is in the often on sale for $499 Platin Milan 5.1 system, the exact same module with the exact same characteristics and feature set. So the technology, we say being a wire replacement isn't very easy, but once you get it right, it can work for anybody.
Okay, but I still may be a little bit confused. What is WiSA certified for the current TVs that are out there right now? What does that mean?
So well, the WiSA certification that we're doing for TVs is SoundSense certification, to make
Okay.
sure that when you plug a SoundSend in,
Oh,
that
okay.
all the
So
communication back and forth from the TV
I
is
see.
perfect. Yeah, because we actually
Okay.
have
So
run into a few situations where some of the CEC commands are a little wonky on certain TV models, and we just want to make
okay.
sure that consumer experience is flawless.
Okay. So I think you're saying when you connect a sound send through the HDMI, that with a
Yes.
certain Hisense models and
Yes.
LG, that those have been tested and certified to work. If you have
Yeah.
another brand working with the sound send, it may work, it may have issues. It hasn't gone through the testing process.
And it should work with everything. I mean, just like, every other product that uses HDMI should plug right into your TV and work perfectly. The
Right.
reason we did SoundSense certification is because we are really, and this is kind of some of the other things the association's doing now, is we want to make sure that the customer experience is flawless.
Mm.
And that it's as efficient as possible, that it's as intuitive as possible, and that it's as bulletproof as possible. And so we know that SoundSend is HDMI and ARC and eARC, and
Right.
we know that TVs have passed those certifications. We created our own kind of checks and balances just to kind of go through and say, okay, yes, this particular product works
Right.
perfectly with these particular TVs. Now, you should be able to plug it into any TV that has gone through HDMI cert and it works perfectly. And
Right.
it does with most of them. Few and far between, we've seen some issue somewhere where
Right.
that some CEC
Okay.
bit is not working right. That's all.
So these are issues with the HDMI specification or the TV manufacturer or something outside of your
Something
area.
outside.
Something.
We're certainly not pointing any fingers. We just want to make
Right.
sure that we are working perfectly with those TVs, and we've had TVs that are like, yeah, let's do it. So
All right.
that's all it is.
So when you get to the point where you can get rid of the sound stand and the
Mhm.
TV has it built in, is there going to be a new name for that? So if you're already using WiSA certified now, is it going to just continue that name or something else?
Yeah, so the TVs would become WiSA interoperable certified. And so right now, the certification we have for TVs is that they're SoundSense certified. You basically
Mm,
take the SoundSense out of the equation, so you take the SoundSense out of the cert name,
okay.
and you would buy a TV that was WiSA certified for interoperability. And then any of those speakers that shared that same cert would work perfectly.
Okay. And you mentioned Bang& Olufsen as a kind of a high-end brand that has this technology built in. Are they like when they market it, are they just saying, "Oh, we have Bang& Olufsen wireless speakers," or do they have to say this is WiSA compatible to know that the customers can use other brands with it?
Yeah,
Or
they would say they say that the speakers are WiSA certified. They're a unique case where obviously they want their speakers to be sold with their TVs.
right.
So the TVs actually aren't interoperable certified. So the
Mm,
TVs work only with Bang& Olufsen speakers, but the Bang& Olufsen speakers are WiSA certified, and they'll work with anything. They'll work with SoundSend. They'll work with any other transmitter.
all right. All right. Let me backtrack a little bit. Let's say I'm a new speaker company and I want to work with WiSA and I want to make my speakers amazing and work the best. How do I go about that? What's the process to get more companies signed up for? And this is for
Yeah.
any companies out there that may want to reach out to you and create this dialogue.
Yeah, they would reach out to us. They would go down the process of integrating the WiSA technology modules into their speakers, into their powered speakers, obviously. And then kind of early in that process, we would expose them to the certification criteria so that they're putting all the proper manufacturing data that can be called upon by the transmitter to know what that speaker is all about, basically. And then once that module was integrated and they'd done all their, electronics on their end, they would provide us a sample of that speaker. We would put it through, certification, which is wireless performance and interoperability testing, because they got involved at the right time and got the right process and the right, documentation and had our help. It probably passes first try. They're awarded that certification and they can use the WiSA certified logo. And that's it.
That's it. And I believe you said there's a sender and receiver that the company doesn't have to make. You provide them to the speaker manufacturer, like put
The
this
modules.
receiver, put this
Yes.
module,
Yep.
it's some type of receiving unit into the speaker. And once you do that, speaker engineers know how to connect it, and then it should work.
It's a very simple process. Yes, it's a simple connection, and the module is pretty turnkey. They can enter, things like, if obviously if it's a center channel or a subwoofer, you're putting that speaker type in there. You can say things like, is this a full range speaker or a small speaker, just so the transmitter can have some clues as to how to arrange it in the system, and other things. But we walk them through that, but it's a very simple process, and it yields a really great experience for the end user.
So why aren't more companies doing it?
Well, first of all, you have to be doing powered speakers, which is kind of a big jump for some companies. And we have had a lot of growth with respect to the last few years, and I think that there are some companies that are taking their time to evaluate the tech. I know at Klipsch we evaluated it for quite some time, Bang Olufsen for quite some time, to make sure that it works with their high standards. And I think that there are some that are still kind of seeing where everything flushes out with respect to multi-channel audio versus soundbars. Soundbars have done a lot of great things for aftermarket audio, but I think we've got to take a step back and say, how do we get people to say, okay, this is great, but I've never walked into a professional cinema and seen a big plastic tube underneath the underneath the screen. We've got to get people back to thinking that there is something better. And I think a lot of brands are coming to that realization, but it's taking some time. So we're helping them get there.
All right. And if they choose to use the WiSA technology, does that preclude them from using the other competitors too? Can they work side by side, Bluetooth, whatever, DTS Play-Fi, however, can they support all of them?
I mean, yeah, it's possible. And I think for the different use cases, there are some speakers out there now. I know some of Harman's Citation line, as an example, used a couple different technologies. Multiple wireless technologies in a given space does render a few hurdles. But it's nothing that can't be overcome if done right and looked at in advance and from a layout perspective. So yes, that's possible. And we do see some opportunity for a single speaker to be used in multi roles. And that's actually one of the benefits of some of the new technologies that we're coming out with, that like working within the Wi-Fi standard and having the potential to be a smart speaker and a component of a theater if somebody wanted to do that. We are looking at that and making sure that everything we do moving forward fits into that, that model.
All right. Well, you mentioned hurdles, which makes me think of what are some of the challenges that haven't been solved yet, that if you could just solve them, it would make life so much easier for everybody.
Well, number one, we're doing everything we can to bring, as everybody is, to bring the cost of everything down. I think that, when you talk about hurdles, the current technology is used. If you look at, Bang & Olufsen and Harman and even the Klipsch stuff that even I worked on, system audio, it's higher end stuff. Yes, it's seen in a couple of lower end of lower price point systems. It's certainly not lower end. But I think always trying to work on bringing the price down to a more manageable amount is key. We've tackled a lot of the robustness issues. You can always get better.
Right.
We when it comes to latency, I think system latency and all the other components that build up that total number outside of our technology can get better, but that's kind of us helping others. And then the biggest one right now is number of channels. Even though we're all the way at 8, which is
Right.
a lot competitively speaking,
Right.
people want 10. And I think that's the next hurdle is, 5.1.4 systems. Well, 5 plus 1 plus 4 is 10, not 8.
Right.
And so, right now we can do Dolby Atmos support in a 5.1.2 system with DS, because we're talking about sound bars, and they have, a lot of wired channels in one solution that now, okay, we can do, like there'll be a solution out later this year from Platin Audio that's going to be a 5.1.4 soundbar. And that's using WiSA technology. So that's getting to that 10 channels, but they're not all wireless. So with WiSA E having the roadmap to get us to 10 channels, that's a big hurdle as well.
So do you think customers really want 10 channels? Like, I don't know anybody with a home theater right now with 10 channels.
That's because it's really hard to do.
It's really hard.
We're going to make it really easy to do. And then you'll know a lot of people with 10 channons.
All right. Well, that's something to look forward to. And these are speakers you'll mount anywhere in the room. Ideally, you will need a powered connector, a powered wall outlet to plug them in.
That's true.
So even if you are plugging them into your ceiling or trying to, you need some kind of power run up there to get them to work.
That's true. That's true. But honestly, even if we can get people to have a solid center channel and a left and right that are 8, 10, 12 feet apart and a good subwoofer, that will be as a big step forward, and then adding the rears is very easy. They don't have to be pinpoint XYZ coordinate. We can change their level. We can change their delay. We can put them in the right spot as long as they start off close, just get something behind you. Atmos, we can bounce off the ceiling. You don't have to cut holes. We do have Life Audio as an example. That's a partner that has WiSA certified in-ceiling speakers. The new Platin Audio 5.1.2 is the first WiSA certified product with up-firing speakers. So there are Atmos solutions. But yeah, just getting speakers close to the right locations, is going to be a big step forward.
Right. So right now, you mentioned the Platin system as one way. You can buy it on Amazon for somewhere around $1,000, I think, depending on your configuration. Maybe it's cheaper if you get 2 speakers. What are some of the and then you mentioned Bang & Olufsen. Where would you point people right now if they want to try this out?
So the first place to go to kind of learn this just about everything is WiSAtechnologies.com. So you can learn about the tech, you can learn about the brands that are in the association, you can learn about the products that those brands have that are available, the different types of certifications. And then, you mentioned Amazon. That's one good place. There's a WiSA store on Amazon. To this kind of a aggregator of all the brands that are selling WiSA stuff on Amazon. You can go to one spot and see it all. And then on our on our website, we also have WiSA certified retailers, which this is a fairly new thing, but it's we can bring in retailers that are starting to sell WiSA products and train them on the technology, help them build their online presence and explain everything correctly and help, relay interoperability and that type of stuff. So I started our website, and then see what kind of brands you kind of gravitate towards. And then it'll be pretty easy to find a spot to either go listen to them or go learn more about them.
All right. And you mentioned some of the things that are inherent in all wireless technology is latency and the distance that the signal can travel. So latency is really just the delay for people not less technical. If there's a delay, and this is really when it comes down to syncing with the TV. If you're just listening to audio, the delay doesn't really matter because you're
Right.
not syncing to anything.
Right.
But when you're watching TV, you want the lips to match the words, and that's
usually
the most important part of
yeah.
How is WiSA dealing with that or improving it, or is it already an industry leader in that?
Well, all of the above. So we are an industry leader, with latency as an example. And as soon as the number comes out of anybody's mouth, there's an argument. But it's great. It's great to stay. You definitely want to stay below, let's say, 40 milliseconds. 20 is really good. We're at 5.2, and we're locked in at 5.2. It doesn't vary. And so we're already really good there. And the two most critical groups that will be the first to raise their hand about latency are either really high-end audiophiles, or gamers. And, and we've answered, the call for both of those groups. So through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears from our engineering group. But we're very, very low latency, and we're tightly synchronized. That's the other thing is, in multi-channel audio, you want everything to, if there's a common sound or something's moving across the room or across the whatever, you want those speakers to be synchronized so there isn't any, weird abnormalities that happen as the sound is transferred from one speaker to another.
Right.
And our synchronization is within 1/millionth of a second. So we're way inside a sample. And those are really hard things to do.
So in terms of distance, let's say you have a big room, is it going to connect to the back of the room? What's the maximum distance before it drops off? Or
when a product goes through certification, we certify it to work in a 40-foot by 40-foot room. So, well within the traditional size of a listening space in a home. Reflections help. So it's not necessarily just line of sight. If you've got three walls in this room, you're in good, in good standing. But we've seen it work significantly farther than that, but that's what we certify.
All right. So this sounds like it won't be a whole home solution. If you want to send WiSA signal all the way across the house, it may not reach. That may not work.
With our current technology, that's the case. Yes. We haven't published specs for the new technologies. But for WiSA HT, it's very much a single room, high-end multi-channel audio solution. Yes.
All right. And that sounds great. In terms of music streaming, it's another big topic. Listening on Apple Music or Spotify, having kind of an all-in-one solution where the speaker, it's already wireless, but you build everything in together. Is that, at least on the audio side, is that something WiSA can work with? Because you still need to connect the speakers. Generally, the receiver is in one, like you're getting the music into one speaker, but then it has to distribute it out to two for stereo or for spatial audio with the new spatial audio in Apple Music.
Yeah.
Are there solutions coming that will make that possible? Because that adds another layer of complexity. How do you get Apple Music to work on or spatial audio through Apple Music to work on a WiSA system?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was getting at.
Yeah, no, again, I go back to, the technology is really a wire replacement. So it's content agnostic. At the front end, whatever's coming in, we will get it from point A to point B, and whatever tuning, whatever processing, whatever layers are on top of that, whether it's at the front end or the back end,
Right.
we really don't care. We're not going to affect that in any way. So, you can use it in any of those situations. We've actually had a few products recently that have come through that are stereo pairs with one side of the stereo pair being responsible for all the content aggregation and control, and then we're being used as the connection to the other speaker.
Mm.
And now what that creates is that other speaker, the one that doesn't have all the source capabilities, can now be used in a multi-speaker situation, because it's just a speaker like anything else, but it's sold as a pair where one speaker does have a lot of the capability you're talking about, and the other one just receives whatever it's sent through WiSA.
I believe JBL has some speakers that come to mind that do this. Does that ring a bell for you, or there's too many companies out there that are doing it?
Well, yeah, there are a lot now. But yeah, there's a JBL solution. There are solutions from a lot of the European brands. Dyn and the likes are following that, and a lot of that is I think because in a lot of European listening situations it is stereo or 2.1,
Right.
and they want a solution that can do exactly what you're saying: bring me all my content and then get it to this other speaker. And when our synchronization and latency is so low, we're good. That's a good use case for us.
Great. So this sounds so promising. It's been in the market now for 12 years. And I keep asking myself, why isn't it, not that it's not popular, but why isn't it everywhere? And why isn't every solution this?
Yeah.
Is it technology? Is it marketing? All of the above?
Yeah, and it's different things. I mean, there has been a lot of uptick, but as prices come down, as awareness increases, the sound send is still a pretty new solution. I think a lot of people just didn't want to have to build the transmitter part. So now we're seeing that to start to be either hard bundled or soft bundled into some products, to where, okay, we didn't have to bring the transmitter, now we can make the speakers. And then the promise of getting into sources. I think it's something that, at a high level of understanding, everybody really, like you said, it's like plugging my TV in and then having these speakers all around. That's where we're going, right? And it just takes a while for, whether it's due diligence or hitting a certain price point or whatever. But we're getting to that critical mass. There are a lot of different variables and a lot of different questions that have to be answered.
Right.
But we're getting there.
Well, do you have the capacity to support all the onslaught of companies that may be asking for this in the future?
Bring them on. Absolutely.
All right. How should companies reach out to you if they feel like WiSA is a solution for their brand? Is it just connect with you and you'll get them hooked up with the right people? Is that how the
Absolutely.
conversation starts?
Absolutely. Yep. I'm a great point of contact. The WiSA technology sales and engineering teams are great, but I'm happy to be the tip of the sword, and I'll get them wherever they need to go and tell them all everything they need to know about the WiSA Association.
All right. Well, I want to close with one of my favorite questions. What is your definition of audio nirvana?
My definition of audio nirvana. Well, I've been a musician for the majority of my life. So my definition of audio nirvana is, being transported by the sounds that I'm hearing and having that affect my mood, my disposition, my general outlook, and aligning with kind of where I want to be emotionally. I think that music and just sound in general has that capability when done right. And I think that that's what everybody should strive for, is to be able to have a place they can go and listen and get where they need to be on an emotional level.
I think that's well said. I think WiSA is one of the technologies that's making that possible. I want to thank you for your time today. We've been speaking with Tony Ostrom, president of the Wireless Audio and Speaker Association, known as WiSA. I think I got that right. And I want to welcome everybody to, or encourage everybody to subscribe and follow and like and share this episode. So thank you so much, Tony. And we'll
Thank you,
see
Brian.
everyone next time.